So here we go then, we're getting ready for our second race of the weekend here at Cadwell Park, at the spectacular circuit up in Lincolnshire in the northeast of the country. Always a real driver's favourite. It tends to produce some pretty close quarters racing as well. Tough to pass around here though, so if you can make progress from further down in the field, that is a real achievement. As I mentioned, this is race 2. Race 1 took place yesterday, and that sets the grid for this one. Alan Henderson won, so he's on pole, alongside Anthony Neild, Liam Murphy, Chris Dawkins, row 2, George Lyon, JJ Clements on the 3rd row, and John Davies and John Greensmith, row 4. Simon Traves and James Aspinall round out the top 10. Then it's James Blake Baldwin and Paul Sheard, Dan Irving, Charlie Charman, John Munro and Andrew Caird, Andy Coombs, Jack Harding, Gary Townsend and Robert Way round out the top 20. Then it's Tom Collins, Carl Garnett, Jeremy Crook, Jim Hart, and a capacity 28 car entry is rounded out by Ray Worley, Ray Grimes, Simon Goddard and Michael Lawson. So as I said, we did have a race yesterday, and it was a race that was dominated by the championship leader Alan Henderson, who lapped at times 1 second a lap quicker than anybody else. He won in the end by 14.5 seconds, and that in Mazda MX-5 racing is pretty much unheard of. Anthony Neild and Liam Murphy though had a great scrap for second place. Those two were tied together throughout, and Chris Dawkins on his debut in the championship was 4th place. Chris has raced in multiple other Mazda MX-5 championships, both in Mark 1 and Mark 3 machinery over the years, but this is his first taste of the SuperCup, and he's hoping to stick around for the foreseeable future. JJ Clements was 6th, but he lost more crucial points to Alan Henderson in the championship. Henderson now extends his championship margin ever further, and JJ in the number 88 car will be really keen to try and take some points out of him in this second race. John Davies was 7th on his return, 8th place John Greensmith, 9th Simon Traves, James Aspinall rounded out the top 10. As for cars outside the top 10, well, Paul Sheard was only 12th. You might have expected more from the man who owns and runs several cars in the championship, but he's not driving the car he tends to drive when he does these races in the SuperCup. He's instead driving Jeff Gurrier's car. Jeff didn't make the trip over to Cadwell Park, so Paul, ever eager to get out there and race, jumped aboard, and so he's racing that car, but he's trying to look after a little bit as well as the weekend goes on. Also watch out for the white car with the red stripes, number 42, that's Charlie Charman, 4th place in the Mark 1 championship last year, but he is now making his debut in the SuperCup. He finished 14th in his first ever SuperCup race yesterday, so that's where he starts for race 2. Jack Harding's down in 18th place, struggling from a bit of a lack of power, and Simon Goddard had a very odd moment yesterday when the car cut out on him. The immobiliser kicked in, and that forced the man who was 3rd in the points to have a DNF and crucial points lost. Ready to go racing though, it's Henderson and Neild row 1, and very quickly the lights go out. Henderson makes a good launch from pole position though. He's going to try and get his whole car in front of Anthony Neild, and I think he manages it. So Neild slots into 2nd, Murphy and Chris Dawkins are going to be 3rd and 4th in that order, and it's a very sensible start. The top 5 or 6 cars are single file into turn 1, but John Davies gets turned in the middle of the pack. He's going to come back on the road and crunch. Several cars unfortunately pile in. There's Gary Townsend with a very spectacular spin. He'd almost avoided that and then lost it on the grass. And we've got a lot of damaged cars. Dan Irving's in that one, Jeremy Crook in the 77, Ray Grimes, Jim Hart's in there, and I think that is the 28 car of Tom Collins, the black car right in the middle of it all with a lot of damage. A lot of damaged cars. There's Simon Goddard. Look, Simon Goddard, who started from the back anyway, he's got some damage in that one. Jim Hart recovering, Ray Grimes, Ray Worley was in it. Looks like John Munro, that's his second big pile-up he's been in 2 meetings. Remember, he was involved in the Snetterton incident early on in the first race down in Norfolk. Good news is most of the drivers seem to be clambering out of their cars, but understandably with the road blocked and a lot of debris all over the place, the red flags have been flown, the race is being stopped, but barely once it got going really. And as the recovery operation immediately begins, we now have a bit of a weight on our hands before we can go racing again. The track is well and truly blocked, and the hard-working British Marshals have plenty of work to do to get the track ready to go racing again, but they will certainly be able to do it. Some of the best marshals in the world, the British Marshals, and they'll be able to get the track cleared, and we should be able to go racing in just a few minutes' time. So the track has now been cleared. The cars lining up on the grid for what will be a 15-minute restart, so a slightly shortened race due to the time that's been lost clearing up the track. And of course, unfortunately, we're missing quite a lot of drivers from particularly in the back part of the field. You're also missing Ray Grimes and Simon Goddard, but we believe they're going to start the race from the pit lane. Most of the top 10 are still there. In fact, I think all of the top 10 are still there, apart from John Davies, of course. So Alan Henderson and Anthony Neild on the front row, as it was the first time round, and Henderson made a great start the first attempt, so we'll see whether he can do the same again now on take 2 of race number 2 here at Cadwell Park. The The lights go to red. They go out now, and away we go. Let's try this again then. Henderson and Neild on the front row of the grid, and again Henderson gets a good start. Anthony Neild's trying to hang with him as they head towards the first corner, Coppice corner, but he's not quite able to do it. Has to slot in behind him as they turn into the left-hander. It is Henderson from Neild, the top two. Murphy is third. JJ Clements is coming through on the inside of Chris Dawkins for fourth place. Look, they do all get safely through the first corner. That's good to see. There's Jim Hart. There are Simon Goddard and Ray Grimes. As I suggested might be the case, they've started from the pit lane, possibly just try and avoid perhaps a repeat incident, and so they now start to try and catch up to the back of the pack. There go Paul Sheard and James Blake Baldwin up the inside of George Lyon. Andrew Caird tries to join them, and as they head up towards Park Corner, one of the best overtaking opportunities on the circuit, most of the top 10 cars opt to stay single file through there, just minding their P's and Q's here. They've seen already what can go wrong on the first lap of races around what is a very narrow and tight and fiddly little circuit. And it can get even narrower and tighter when you get too many cars trying to go for the same piece of tarmac. So they're keeping it clean now. Henderson is trying to escape again. As I said yesterday, 1 second a lap quicker than anybody else. But it's important to mention he's not feeling all that well this weekend. He wasn't feeling great yesterday, but he's feeling even worse today, if anything. So that may affect his pace as the day goes on. There's Jack Harding. He was held up in that incident as well. He's in behind Gary Townsend trying to work his way back through, but the leading pack turn their way through the left and then the right at the foot of the mountain. JJ Clements really gets squirrely on the acceleration up the hill. He's trying to latch himself onto the boot lid of Chris Dawkins in fourth place. Really is great to see Chris in the championship, but JJ Clements has had a big moment, bounces across the grass, and miraculously, not only does he not lose control, but he doesn't lose a place either. He stays in 5th place, right behind Chris Dawkins, and just in front of John Greensmith. He's got a bit of dirt on his tyres though, so the car's slithering around a bit more through the hairpin and barn corner, but now as he heads onto the pit straight, he should be able to regroup, but he's lost a bit of ground to the leading quartet. Henderson leading then, Neild second, Murphy third, and Dawkins fourth, and they really do not want to let Alan Henderson escape out in front. On board with Anthony Neild, you can see him hustling the car as he goes through Coppice now into Charlie's corner, one of the most daunting corners in the country. This one, a long double apex right-hander, but the road undulates up and down through dips, off camber, careful not to run wide over the curb onto the park straight, and he hasn't had a great run out of there, has he? Liam Murphy's all over him, but they're working together. Liam Murphy is pushing Anthony Neild up the hill. They're bump drafting, that's the term that we use, and Alan Henderson now is being forced to defend on the brakes. Neild looks to the outside, Murphy stays in line in 3rd place, so no positions change, but Henderson not able to escape. He's a bit slow out of park, and as they go into Chris Curve, Neild had a bit of a cheeky look up the inside of him, and Anthony Neild could not be any closer to the AK Automotive driver. Now remember, Alan Henderson has had a brilliant hit rate this year. He's already won several races, he's been on the podium most times out. Only really a 9th place finish at Rockingham standing out as a bit of a disappointing result. But other than that, he has been in dominant fashion, so he can sort of afford to drop a few places here, and he won't lose too many championship points. If he feels that the cars behind are putting him under too much pressure, he may decide to take this a bit easier. For the time being though, Neild is dropping back because he's having to defend now from Liam Murphy. Liam has not won a race in the championship for a couple of years, but then for some reason Henderson's slow out of the mountain, and as they go up the hill, Anthony Neild almost clattered into the back of him. That's really bottled this whole group up, so what was a 4-car lead train is now turned into a 6 or even 7-car battle. You could even make that 8 really, couldn't you, because Simon Traves in the 47 cars tagged along on the back of it as well. This is typical Mazda MX-5 racing though. Really what we like to see, it's close quarters stuff, but it's tough to pass around here. You've really got to force the issue or try and force a mistake out of the car in front of you. Alan Henderson weaving this way and that. You could see brilliantly already there the effect of the slipstream down the pit straight as they go through the first corner, almost flat out through Coppice. Into Charlie's they go. And let's see if Neild can get a slightly better run out of the corner this time. He didn't get a great one last time, and Murphy put him under pressure up the straight. And again, it's Murphy who's quickest out of the turn. And this time, rather than working with the Paul Sheard car, he looks to the inside of him, and I think he's got his nose alongside. Yes, he has. Murphy going for 2nd place up the hill. He's going to have the inside line for Park Corner. Henderson is covering the inside just in case, but Murphy is now the man he needs to worry about, not Anthony Neild. Murphy's gone 2nd, Neild 3rd, and Chris Dawkins again gets himself onto the tail of the leading trio. 4 cars for the lead then through Chris Curve, but on board with Neild, and we're no longer in 2nd place. Liam Murphy has gone through, and already, look, is starting to attract the attention of the race leader. He's all over Alan Henderson as they drop down the hill towards Mansfield, the left-hander. Not close enough to have a go that time, but Henderson perhaps just drifted a little bit wide at the apex. Didn't cost him too much ground on the exit though. They head through the left-hand kink before the mountain, underneath the pedestrian bridge. Cars hop and bobble around, a very bumpy circuit in place as well, Cadwell Park, just to add to the character and the challenge. hooking the left wheels over the curb to try and help the car turn through the left-hander, and Murphy again looks very quick on the exit of corners, doesn't he? Good traction he's got in that car in this race. He's really hustling the race leader and championship leader Alan Henderson. This is fantastic to see from Liam Murphy. I, for one, really tipped him to be right in the thick of the championship battle, and whilst he's still not out of the equation completely as far as the championship is concerned, it looks like he may have to resign himself to really a fight for second place in the points because Henderson's starting to escape. But if Murphy can just get himself a few more podiums and perhaps a few race wins, that'll put him right back in contention. He's right on the tail of Henderson as they head towards the first corner, but with no braking done at all into Coppers, there's no way you're going to go through on the inside or the outside there. The same goes for Charlie's, really. Full commitment required through this high-speed first sector of the circuit. Chris Dawkins there is very committed out of Charlie's, and again, Anthony Neal looks a little bit weak there, doesn't he? And Dawkins is onto his rear bumper now up the hill. So he got 2 for the lead, 2 for third and 2 for fifth as well, because JJ Clements and Simon Traves have got themselves together. They're actually running side by side up the hill now towards Park Corner, but Traves is not going to be able to go around the outside, I don't think, of the man who's second place in the championship coming into this weekend, JJ Clements. So it looks like JJ will hang on to a top 5. So Anthony Neal, who perhaps is struggling in certain parts of the circuit, certainly looks good through Park and Chris Curve, doesn't he? He's able to close back in on the leading 2, and he's bringing Dawkins with him. Dropping down the hill, very challenging braking point that into Mansfield because it's such a steep drop. It really is one of those parts of the circuit that the cameras do not do justice to. It is a really, really steep, undulating part of the circuit on a circuit full of steep and undulating sections, Cadwell Park. It's no wonder that despite its relative remoteness, it still draws a big, big entry, a capacity grid here this weekend because the drivers just love coming here and they love racing around one of the most challenging circuits in the country. Up through the Hall Bends then, Henderson's still hanging on, but Murphy does look to have the pace to really give him something to think about in this race, doesn't he? 8 minutes, just over 8 minutes left on the clock. We turn into Barn Corner once more. And Anthony Neal again providing some great onboard footage. There's Traves, he has now got ahead of JJ Clements and is backing him up into John Greensmith. So 4 for the lead and 3 now for 5th place. Traves 5th, Clements in 6th and Greensmith 7th. Up the hill towards the left-hander at Coppice as the leaders turn their way through Charlie's again. Over the hill past the Marshall's post. Marshall have a great view of the action there, don't they? And then out onto the Park straight again. Oh, bit of a wiggle there from Simon Traves in the 47. JJ Clements is touching, pushing him up the hill. Goes to driver's right, that's the inside line, but he didn't quite have enough momentum to make that one stick. And he's got to be mindful because he's in the difficult position of both attacking and defending, because in front of him is Simon Traves. He wants to try and find a way through, but he knows that if he goes offline to make a move, John Greensmith, who's filling his mirrors, will dive straight up the inside. So it's a really tricky position that JJ Clements finds himself in, and he'd very much like to try and find his way past Simon Traves and maybe break away from that little tussle. Out of the gooseneck they come. JJ Clements throwing the car around. He's always exciting to watch, is JJ. A lot of drivers say that you have to treat these Mark III cars with a bit more respect than the Mark 1s, which you can really throw around and back into the corners. But JJ still seems to be adopting a fairly robust driving style, doesn't he? And the car is all action. Again, a bit of a twitch as he goes up through the bottom part of the mountain, then runs a bit too wide over the curb. That was a bit too sideways. John Greensmith has a look up the inside into the Hall Bends, but it's very much single file through here. You don't want to try running side by side through this sequence. It almost always ends in contact, and one car at least ending up off on the grass. John Greensmith has been around long enough to know that, so decides to stay single file for the time being. They're being caught by George Lyne, though, in the number 55 car. George in the CMS-sponsored car is starting to make that a 4-car fight as well, a bit like the 4-car fight for the race lead, but it's still Henderson from Murphy. I say a 4-car fight, but Chris Dawkins' pace has dropped off slightly, hasn't it? So whilst Neal in third has been able to stay with the leading duo, Dawkins has just started to drop ever so slightly back. So 3 for the lead then, and look at the run that Murphy's got out of Charlie's this time. He's looking to the inside of Simon Goddard. Goddard's desperately trying to get across to defend the line, but he can't do it because Murphy is there. Finally, with 5 3/4 minutes remaining, I think Liam Murphy's forced the issue, but no! Henderson somehow gets across to defend and holds on to the lead. He refuses to give up. He doesn't need to win this race. He's already got a very comfortable championship lead, but he really, really wants to try and do at least 2 race wins here from Cadwell Park after winning yesterday, and who knows, maybe even go for 3 out of 3. Illness or not, Alan Henderson is still a very formidable competitor out on the track and very difficult to get past, and now Anthony Neal's starting to buy into it as well as they drop down the hill in towards Mansfield. These three are absolutely tied together. Fantastic racing we're being treated to here at Cadwell Park from the Mazda MX-5 SuperCup, which really has been over-delivering on excitement in recent races. And it looks like the journey up to Lincolnshire is providing us with much more of the same. Anthony Neal hurls the car over the curb through the bottom of the mountain. Again, though, out of the slow corners, Liam Murphy seems to have really good drive, really good traction. And he's able to close the gap once more to the race leader. Over the crest of the hill into another very tricky braking point, braking on a turn and over a crest, and it's bumpy into the hairpin, which means you don't see that many overtakes into that corner, but it can be done if you're brave. A lot of last lap lunges have been seen there over the years, but the leading trio make their way across the line. As they start to trip over each other, Chris Dawkins is starting to close back in for my money. Yes, he is. He's lapping a little bit quicker at the moment. Murphy and Henderson again working together, trying to break the toe, trying to get away from Anthony Neal. That would suit Liam Murphy down to the ground if he didn't have to worry about defending from the number 29 machine behind him. But he knows Neal isn't that far back. Out of Charlie's, it couldn't be any closer for the race lead though. Murphy knows he's good here. Can he get alongside Henderson again on the run towards Park Corner? No, he's a little bit further back this time. He's maybe dropped back to try and get a good run up the hill. The slipstream will close him back in, but he's not able to get alongside just yet. Henderson leaves the door open, and that could have been a mistake because Liam Murphy seizes the opportunity, dives through on the inside, and he does now wrestle the lead away from Alan Henderson. New race leader at Cadwell Park, and it is Liam Murphy, who has not won a race yet this year, despite being very, very quick. He's had a lot of bad luck and the odd race weekend where he just didn't quite manage to get away with the leading group, but he's really managed that here today at Cadwell Park. He now leads the way, and Anthony Neal wants to go with him. Look, goes up the inside of Alan Henderson in towards Mansfield. Out of the corner they go. Who gets the best drive out? I think it's Henderson, so I think he'll hang on to second place. Yes, he does. So Murphy holds on to the lead. Henderson settles into second. And now, can he do anything about Liam Murphy? Murphy, for my money, has looked a little bit quicker than Henderson so far this race, so he may be able to pull away, and that's George Lyne. George Lyne goes off. That's at the foot of the mountain. Not too sure what's happened there. The car was travelling at some rate on the grass, locked up and just nudged into the tyre barriers ever so slightly. No damage done, but it looks like his race may be done. That's a shame. That leaves JJ Clements and John Greensmith to do battle all on their own now for 6th position, as the leading 4, nearly leading 5, head out to the final turn, because Simon Traves, having been freed from that JJ Clements and John Greensmith battle, is going after them. Across the line we go, 2 minutes 40 left on the clock, time ticking down in this shortened race. It may have been shortened, but we haven't had a shortfall of action, have we? So much going on, and look at Anthony Neal. The mid-corner speed he takes through Charlie's is phenomenal. Closes right in on Alan Henderson, and as Henderson's having to defend, so Liam Murphy's able to pull away. A half a second gap at the start of the lap is almost doubled, I'd say, now, as they head up the hill towards Park Corner. In towards the braking zone. Does Neal try and go up the inside of Henderson like Murphy did on the previous lap? He had a think about it, but decided he was too far back. So they turn through the right-hander, still single file. There's JJ Clements, still ahead of John Greensmith. That's Paul Sheard, who's all on his own, really, behind them, having a bit of a lonely race. That'll suit him. He doesn't want to bash up Jeff Gurrier's car too badly. Just keeping his powder dry, really, is Paul, but he's a very rapid racer, and if he stays out of trouble, he certainly has the pace to make his way up towards the leading pack. Perhaps not in this race, but he might benefit from a slightly better grid position for race 3 and get himself in the mix in that one. Leaders out of Mansfield for what will presumably be the penultimate time, under the footbridge towards the bottom of the mountain. And Traves is right on the tail now, the number 22 car of Chris Dawkins, isn't he? Through the left, through the right, up over the top of the hill. Dawkins seems to carry a bit more speed through there, so he just stretches the margin slightly. And they wind their way through the Hall Bend. Such a technically demanding part of the circuit. You can see they're using the curbs. The cars are hopping and skipping out wide, again through the Lex right-hander, dancing on the brakes into the hairpin, where again JJ Clements is sideways in the background, leading 5 down the hill onto the final lap of the race. Has Liam Murphy done enough to get his first win of 2015? We'll find out soon. There's Simon Goddard. Simon Goddard's now caught up to Gary Townsend, so he's in 14th place at the moment, and he wants 13th. Chris Dawkins, meanwhile, has just set the fastest lap of the race. It's not quite down on the lap record pace that was set by Mike Comber and Dave Chapman last year, but it's still a very, very quick lap that from Chris, and it's brought him back onto the tail of the leading 3. So the top 5 again are pretty close together, but I think Murphy, yes, he's still got a decent margin, certainly shouldn't feel the need to defend in towards Park Corner, but Chris Dawkins might, because he just got 2 wheels on the grass going up the hill. Not quite sure how he managed to do that one, but it means he does have to defend from Simon Traves. Runs a little bit wide again on the exit of Park Corner, but somehow gets back across to the apex at Chris Curve and holds on to 4th place. A little bit scrappy last lap here for Chris Dawkins, and it's dropped him off the tail of Anthony Neild, which means he's free to attack Alan Henderson, and this is the battle to watch, really. Henderson sideways through the gooseneck down into Mansfield. Neild has a big look at the inside, but Henderson just about had it covered through the tight left-hander again. Neild is clambering all over him. It's letting Liam Murphy really pull away now, so Murphy, with less than half a lap to go, is fairly comfortably out in front, but he's locked up. Has he run wide? Yes, he has. Liam Murphy's made a mistake at the foot of the mountain, and look, Alan Henderson's right back with him in towards the Hall Bends, where luckily for Liam Murphy it's very difficult to run side by side, as we've documented already, but despite having a fairly comfortable margin going on to the last half a lap, Liam Murphy has made a very big mistake and has put himself under all sorts of pressure through the last few corners. Down towards Barn Turn they go for the final time. I think he should be able to hang on, but it'll be by the skin of his teeth. He exits the final turn, drops down through the dip, and yes, I think Liam Murphy will take his first win of the season, but only just from Alan Henderson second. Neild is third, Simon Traves is 4th on line there, and 5th place Chris Dawkins. This is the fight further down for the positions outside the top 10. Andy Coombs, Jack Harding, Gary Townsend and Simon Goddard. I think that might just be the order they finish in. They drop down the hill. There's Andrew Caird just coming out of the final turn now. In behind Paul Sheard, out of the corner. Jack Harding's had a good run out there. He's attacking Andy Coombs, but that car is severely underpowered this weekend, and look, he gets swamped on the line. Gary Townsend goes one side of him and Simon Goddard goes the other. And you've got to feel for Jack Harding. He does everything right, just has no luck at all, and he loses another 2 places there on the line. That'll put him all the way down to about 14th place. But Liam Murphy takes the race win, and a well-deserved one. He really had to fight for that. He nearly threw it away on the last lap, but he hangs on. Henderson, Neild, Dawkins and Clements the top 5. John Greensmith is 6th, Paul Sheard 7th, James Aspinall 8th, then Blake Baldwin and Andrew Caird round out the top 10. Andy Coombs, Gary Townsend, Simon Goddard, Jack Harding, Carl Garnett, Michael Lawson, Ray Worley and Jim Hart round out the 18 finishes. Then we get into the list of cars that didn't manage to get to the end, most of them involved in that first corner shunt. Simon Traves, though, who finished quite high up in the road, 4th place member on the road, was excluded because he was the man who was judged to have tagged John Davies and caused that melee on the first attempt at the start.
The plan from the start was to stick with Anthony and Alan and see what happened, really. I knew around the back of the track I was quicker, so I just saw the gaps and went for him, yeah.
And of course, having the red flag didn't help things with a bit of disruption. Did that help you to kind of recompose and get yourself focused for the restart?
Well, I probably would have preferred it to start the first time because got a better start, but no, yeah, you can recompose yourself, yeah, better.
So how confident with the pace you've got in the car, you trying to hope to try and get back into a victory and get that for race 3?
Well, I'll have my best go, yeah.
Excellent. Well, you got clear pace. It's good to see you on the top step of the podium again. So, well done. Best of luck for race 3.
Thanks a lot.
Second place in race 2 goes to the race 1 winner, Alan Henderson. Alan, very eventful race, of course, with the red flag involved as well. Just really talk us through from what you know of that event, of the course of the red flag, and also your race overall, what you had.
Well, the red flag, I don't know what happened. It looks like there's been a few cars involved in the first corner or second corner. Unfortunately, one of our cars is involved and it looks pretty damaged, pretty badly damaged. That's all I really know at the minute. I haven't managed to speak to Dan about it. But, when we're sitting on the red flag at the grid, it started raining quite heavy, and on the restart it was dry on most of the track, and then wet through Hall Bends in the last corner and a little bit on Charlie's 1. And to be honest, I just wasn't that confident to push hard. So they stuck with us for a while, and then I smashed me driver's mirror on one of the floppies at Park Corner, and I was trying to fix it while I was going round, but it all just unclipped, and Liam must have seen that and just took advantage and just went to the right hand side and just outbraked us, and I moved out the way, and then I think it was all right. I was defending a little bit from Anthony, and I was using gears that I wouldn't have if I was on my own. I missed a gear coming out up the top of the mountain and stuff. It was just a bit scrappy, really, but good result still.
Well, it looks as though the weather's brightening up a bit more for race 3, so hopefully, you could be able to do the same you did in race 1. If it stays dry, you'll be a bit more comfortable, hopefully.
Hopefully. I mean, the car didn't feel like it did yesterday, but I don't know if that was just track conditions. So we'll align it and make sure it's right, and then have another good race. It was a cracking race. I mean, second's still a good result, and it was a really good race of it.
We know the pace you've got on the dry, so fingers crossed you can repeat race 1 and make it second win of the weekend. But second place is still good, so well done and best of luck.
Thank you very much.
So third place in race 2, and once again on the podium is the 29 of Anthony Neal. Anthony, really good job on that race, of course, as well. Good battle at Alan, but of course the disruption with the red flag didn't help things.
No, we were sat on the grid and it was raining now, and I was on the dry tyres. I could see Alan was on the wets, so I was just sat there thinking, please don't rain anymore. And then I could see it was getting a bit brighter, so I was hoping that it would dry up a lot quicker than it did, but we had one lap and then it didn't dry up towards through Hull Bends and everything, so it was a bit hairy on the first lap. But no, it was a bone dry race after the first lap, and no, it was a good race, really good race.
Of course, if it gets dry again, you'll be hoping to try and carry some more momentum into race 3. So fingers crossed you can pull off another good result.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean that's the aim. I'd like a win off this weekend, to be honest, a second and a third. So I've got to aim for a first. And to be honest, any of the top 3 then could have been first, second, or third, or whatever. It was really, really close, but it's good racing. I'm just happy to be out, to be honest.
Yeah. Winner complete the collection.
Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Well, yeah. Well, best of luck for you, and well done for the podium. Good job.
Thanks very much.